There we are. We're live. Migrating to Australia. Special COVID-19 lockdown, Easter, happy
Easter Sunday
Resurrection
podcast.
Day. Yep.
Live streaming. Happy Easter, Grant. How are you?
Oh, great. Thank you, David. I hope the Easter Bunny was able to get out of his social isolation and bring you some chocolate.
I think Dan Andrews allowed a pass, so he's delivered all his goodies to us in Victoria. I am being very good today because I'm going to do some exercise in isolation after, so no chocolate yet.
Oh, very good. Well, I walked the dog nice and early, so that was...
You've earned your chocolate.
I have, although there's no chocolate here. I cooked myself an Easter lasagna. So,
oh, that's nice.
So yeah,
that's very nice. Is that for lunch or dinner?
I can even
eat it now. There you
proof.
go. Oh, looking good.
Oh, hang on.
Proof.
Easter lasagna.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, bechamel.
No, ricotta and some parmesan on top. So
yum.
Yes, very good.
Hey, we were talking off air before. You're going to read some reviews. We've never let people know what they say about us online.
Well, how about we do the hard-hitting information that we actually have organised this little session for first, and that is what international students. Yeah, we're going to talk first about what international students at different universities are being offered in the way of assistance to tide them over in this this time of uncertainty. It's a real problem, isn't it? That we don't know how long it's going to last, and courses are running. That's the thing we need to point out, is that if you're a student and you're enrolled, your course is running.
Absolutely, you'll be online. Or you might be on holiday at the moment, but courses are being done online, and it is a period of great uncertainty. What we're going to do is a whip around the country at some of the universities and the care packages, for want of a better term, the COVID financial assistance packages on offer at some of the schools. This list we cover, the schools we cover, is not an exhaustive list. We don't have the time to cover every university in the country, but it's to give a flavour of what the schools are offering. And if your school is not mentioned, you should make inquiry to see whether it is offering a package. This is looking at universities, not private providers.
That's right. And if you've never had to seek any kind of assistance at uni before, just about every campus, every university will have an international student club or federation or society, whatever it's called. You will also have a student welfare officer as part of the student union or the SRC, and these are the people that your fees pay for, and now is the time to
use them, to get help from them. Absolutely.
Access those services, and there are people there who are used to dealing with the bureaucracies, and when you're dealing with grants and assistance and whatnot from any semi-government organisation, which is what the universities are,
don't do it yourself.
Paperwork. So we're going to let you know what we know is available. Some schools, some universities still haven't made any of the information public. I'm sure they're all working away feverishly over the Easter break to get everything done and presented. But the first port of call will be your student welfare office, or there may be an outreach person attached to finance at the finance office at the university. So ask questions. Don't be satisfied with looking at the website, because they may not get updated quick enough.
It's like a visa application too, Grant. What happens is you read something and you misinterpret it, whereas one of the officers employed by the university you attend will be in a position to better understand what the requirements are. So, as to echo what you say, to do it yourself, you're crazy. You get one bite. If you already have, one of the themes running through all the universities, if you've already sought assistance this year, you'll be more than likely precluded from further assistance.
Yep. So that's again where you have to speak to your welfare officer, and uh, and remember, you can be flexible with things like this. Sometimes if you have had some assistance now, and you would be eligible, other than you've already have a student loan that you maybe took out early in the year, there's banks on campuses, and they do have networks with the union and with the the bursar's office and things like that. So be prepared to get creative, because that's what's going to be required at this time.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being creative. It's to be actively encouraged, because these grants, and there's also interest-free loans. These grants, we don't know when they'll finish. A lot of the unis are still working them out, as you rightly say. Monash, for example, on the 14th of this month, will open up a special $7,000 grant for Chinese and Iranian students. And you look around, it's a process that's developing and ongoing, much like the advice the government gives us about coronavirus itself, constantly being updated. So by the time you listen to this, get to your school website, see if they're doing something similar. We're going to work around the country clockwise. We'll start at the top with Charles Darwin University. Small campus, small university up in Darwin. Does it have an Alice Springs campus? I don't know. But
I
basically,
don't think they do.
No.
Great hub, worldwide leader in tropical horticulture. Did you know that?
No, I didn't. Well,
there we go.
Now, what is tropical horticulture as opposed to standard horticulture? What's grown up in the north as opposed to the south?
Yeah, how many papayas have you successfully grown in your backyard, David? And how many?
I've eaten a few.
Yeah, it's just a different class of plant, really, and dealing with 2 seasons and much more rainfall, different pests, humidity. But there we go, Charles Darwin University.
Yeah,
soft spot in my heart.
They're offering assistance to not just domestic students. All these schools, every school we're talking about today is offering to domestic, that is local students, and international students. So the criteria is you've got to be a member of the school, actively enrolled in the school, and good grades. That's one that comes up in all of them. You've got to be able to show that you've got a capacity to finish your course, and the way you demonstrate you've got a capacity to finish your courses with good grades. So, well, it remains to be seen whether those who don't have good grades will get funding. I think there'll be a bit of flexibility there. But it's lucky that you and I aren't applying grant, because I never had good grades. I was a late bloomer.
When time's gone by, I don't think I've really mentioned this on the podcast before, but I was a student, the president of a student association at one time, and good grades really just meant that you have passed. You've pretty much passed everything. Maybe you've had one fail that didn't. That meant that you could easily resit, and that you'd then pass that subject on your second go.
Okay.
But the interpretation when I was sitting on academic boards and things like that was that you were able to pass. You didn't have to be getting credits and distinctions. You just had to be passing.
1988, I had one day at Deakin. 1988, I had a term at La Trobe. I got kicked out. 1989, I had a term, got kicked out. I was a late bloomer. I went to law school end of the middle end of the 90s. So I had good grades then. But as an international, if I was an international student or domestic student studying undergrad back then in the 80s, I was no good. These guys in Darwin have to move fast, Grant.
When do applications close? They're
April.
Open now, are they?
They're open now, Charles Darwin, for vocational, higher ed and research, but they shut at Charles Darwin the end of April. Selection criteria, you've always got to demonstrate in each instance for each university we covered today, job loss. Did you get your job? Were you made redundant? Were you sacked? What happened? You've got to be able to explain and demonstrate your job loss or reduced hours. Now, getting reduced hours, you get your boss to write a letter saying you're on 20 hours a week, 40 hours a fortnight. You've now got 10 hours a fortnight. Because we all know when school's in session, international students who aren't working in supermarkets, aged care or nursing, When school's in session, they can only work 40 hours a fortnight. So that's how you demonstrate up in Darwin your job loss or your reduced hours. You get a letter from your employer for reduced hours.
And I would think that at this time where we're not supposed to be going out to collect letters and things like that, I think an email from an official address will suffice.
Absolutely. And what you would want to do to help your boss is write the letter for your boss and get them to sign it electronically or send it from their email and make sure they explain what job you had, how many hours per week you worked, how many hours per fortnight you worked, and what the reduced hours are, because you don't want to get something from your boss that's incorrect or unhelpful. So you'd write the letter for your boss.
And I would say you would ask your welfare officer or whatever the term is at the union or the SRC, you'd get them to write it for you, and then you send it on to your boss.
Even better. I mean, it depends on how good your English is. I mean, everybody who's studying here has a fair degree of English, but you know what? You draft a letter, you show it to your student support officer, get them to fix it or rewrite it, and then once again, this is, as you quite rightly point out, this is something that would be done electronically, and that's okay. Everything you have to lodge electronically anyway. It's the way of the world in this COVID lockdown, and you've got to be able to demonstrate also to Charles Darwin how it impacts on your food budget, your rent. This money will be allowed for your transition from campus to online. So, one-off internet connections, purchase of a computer if you don't have a computer, mobile data charges. So there's a flexibility to what it's available for. Also, if you've got financial loss because you're missing out on placements, you've purchased travel tickets, there's a range of things that you can use it for, but there's also things you can't use it for. You can't use it to pay school fees. You can't use it to pay credit card debts.
Because because they're all things that you would have budgeted for in the normal course of events as you study. So
that's exactly right.
It's those unforeseen and extra charges that are happening now because of the way things are.
If you actually if you've had coronavirus and you're up there, you'll need a medical certificate to demonstrate. You'll need bank statements. You go back with bank statements 90 days. Never hurts to overkill. Gild the lily, so there's no evidence they ask for. You give them everything they need and then a little bit more. You want to show your financial trajectory downward, because if you've missed work, you're sacked, reduced hours, your income's going to plummet. And you've got to be able to demonstrate that with bank statements. You may have problems if you're being paid cash. Some students get paid cash. We don't like cash.
And that's why we have said, for 2 years now, David, don't get paid in cash.
So many issues associated with Grant, with being paid in cash. So many negative issues. You want to show your trouble. You show your trouble to meet your rent, your bank statements show what your input is, what's coming in, and rent shows what's going out. And this is how you'll get yourself a grant from Charles Darwin University. You apply online, and what happens is you wait for a response, and you either get it or you don't get it. Look at the CDU Charles Darwin University website for more details. It's Darwin.
So and all of these conditions that we're talking about will be fairly common across all of the schools. So unless there's a special condition, we won't really need to cover that sort of thing each time. So
no, the thing, what we've got, what is in common, and we've talked about it earlier at the start of the podcast, is you've got to be of good academic standing. And you've got to be able to show you can complete your degree. And, if you failed everything, you may have issues. University of Queensland's offering information on their website. They're pretty generous as well. Interest-free loans and grants. All of these grants are open to international and local students. Some schools have a bigger purse than others, but that's okay. That's what happens. The bigger the school, the more resources they have. You've got to be enrolled. You've got to demonstrate temporary and unexpected financial need. So, that's why you go back and provide as much information as you can to set your financial scene and show how coronavirus has ruin that by you losing your job or being placed on reduced hours by your employer.
And if there are costs that if there are expenses you need to take on to do your classes at home on live online, that's something you wouldn't have been
That's
expected
unexpected.
to, because
Absolutely.
if you had always and previously have always been using the internet facilities at the library, well, that's not open to you anymore. So it's
Correct.
unexpected that you would have to set up home to be able to deal with that. So
that's a great example. Relocation costs. If one of your your housemates has got coronavirus and you've left, so there's relocation costs allowed. Furnishing for your new establishment. You've got to be meticulous in your paperwork and meticulous in your evidence.
And I would think, I hadn't thought about that if one of your housemates had actually got coronavirus, but what if you were a household and you were all, let's say, Chinese speaking students, maybe from Malaysia, maybe from China, Taiwan, and when the government said go home, that all of your housemates decided to go home, then that's an unforeseen circumstance for you.
Oh, my word. And relocation, you'd need to relocate from an apartment of 4, 5 to an apartment, a bed sit for one. Absolutely. Yeah. That's definitely unforeseen. Childcare costs, if one of you was working and one of you was studying, or I should say one of you was looking after children and one of you was studying, if that person gets sick, or if that person was also working and they lose a job or get a job in this, if they get a job as a stacker to support the studying spouse, childcare might become an issue. They might have to have childcare they didn't foresee. There's all these permutations that must be documented with evidence to show what you were pre-coronavirus, so January, February, March, and then show what's happening in April, May, and June. But you've got to remember, each school has closing dates. Some are open-ended. University of Queensland.
When's UQ? Yeah. When does that?
Well, UQ. Having a look at the UQ website doesn't appear to have an end date, but obviously, the quicker you apply, the quicker they'll say yes or no to your application.
Yeah, the quicker you'll get some money.
Yeah, correct. And they've also got. Go on.
I was just going to ask if you've got any of the other Queensland campuses.
What UQ does, I didn't touch Bond and I didn't touch Griffith. What they can't be used for the specific purpose, almost like a specific purpose grant. No tuition fees, no fines, no credit card payments, no student visa fees, and no costs incurred outside Australia. You've got to demonstrate what you're applying for. You've got to demonstrate when you apply what you're going to spend the money upon. Okay, it's submitted online with identification, license, Medicare card, passport, proof of income, at least, or lack of. Proof of income with 2 pay income slips, bank statements, proof of need. I've got electricity bills to pay for this quarter. I have gas bills to pay for this quarter. I have registration. Demonstrate all of this. And
but I would think that all of those things would not be what they intend that money to be spent on, because you have to pay them anyway. That's why parking fee, fines and things like that are all excluded. But
you can pay for bills. Certain bills you can absolutely.
Household bills?
Yeah, okay. Rent, bond, household bills, study-related equipment that was not foreseen. You can do that.
Oh, good.
The key is an evidentiary trail to look at what your expenses are. That's why it's great what you said earlier, to get assistance. If your English is good but you're worried about misinterpreting or not providing full evidence, get somebody in student services to help you.
And your fees are paying for these people, so make sure you use them.
And the fees are, as we both know, quite considerable.
That's right.
It's done online. They're pretty quick. You meet with an advisor. You get your result in 5 days.
Well, that's pretty good. And these days, when you get your result, you probably have the money deposited that day or the next day. Yeah.
Correct. That's exactly right. So it's a good service. It's a fast service. If you're University of Queensland, you're listening and you're in dire need, avail yourself of the opportunity. Sydney University.
Hang on. If you are at the University of Queensland, just
avail yourself of the opportunity. Absolutely.
But just take some time and admire those amazing jacaranda trees there too. Beautiful campus.
School, beautiful campus, beautiful grounds. It's a beautiful state aesthetically. We won't talk about anything. We won't talk about politics. We won't talk about One Nation. No.
Right. Who's next, David?
Sydney University. All good again for local and international. They're offering bursaries. I like that. A bursary. Have you ever had a bursary before?
Mate, I didn't go to one of those private schools, David.
You got to be studying full time, and also academic progress. Again, it's a chorus for every school you apply. Every school that's listed, and presumably every school that offers it, will require you to be of good academic standing. Okay, and if you're experiencing financial difficulty at the University of Sydney, this is something you can avail yourself of. You've got to be able to show your bank history, your financial transactions for the last 30 days. Bills, invoices, quotes, what you have as upcoming expenses must be provided with your online application. You upload everything. Find out the megabyte size of uploads. Find out what form, how they like them, as PDFs, as JPEGs. It gets technical. Do it right so they actually get the evidence, okay? You'll have an appointment. It'll presumably be in this time of lockdown, a phone appointment, and they'll have a 15-minute interview with you. They'll go through your evidence. So the more evidence, the more likely you are to secure a loan, a grant. There are interest-free loans. I suppose the danger with interest-free loans is your inability to pay them. You finish your course, or you've got 12 months to pay them back, or finish your course and pay them at the completion of the course, whichever comes first. Now, if you get back on your feet, but don't get back on your feet quickly enough, they may delay your graduation. Interest-free is nice, but it's a loan, and a loan must be paid back, whereas a grant may not, does not.
So just putting on my careful hat, if I was in my final year, that would be something I would be concerned about availing myself of, because we don't know if the government's talking about 6 months. We don't know if all those jobs and all the hours that everyone has been reduced, we don't know if they're going to come back in.
Correct.
Before.
That's why it's always dangerous to take on a loan.
Exactly.
Always. Interest-free is a little bit of honey. It's a bit of a sweetener, but you've still got to pay it back. And what they have over you is a capacity to prevent you from graduating, to prevent you from getting your testimonial, your academic transcript, until you pay back the loan. So you might have to get money from mum and dad overseas. And what if they don't have the money, because they too are affected by coronavirus?
And if you can't graduate on time, then you have to budget. You have to budget to be here longer. If your next
capacity to apply for a 485 visa, if you're going to apply for a 485 visa.
That's right. It's got so many knock-on effects.
Be careful with loans. Be very careful with loans. Look toward grants. Now, with grants, one of the things we haven't touched on that we can't stress strongly enough: give the university the correct bank details. Easier said than done. Make sure your bank details are correct, because if they're not correct, it'll delay the process, put a spanner in the works, and you'll be without grant money for a longer period.
Yes.
Really important. Little things like this count. They may seem insignificant, but if you give them the wrong bank details, you're going to be in trouble. They've got immediate cash assistance as well for those in super need. Look, to be in need in this country is no shame whatsoever. The universities are offering this for a purpose, a reason to help. Don't be ashamed to seek help. It will not be used against you. The only thing it will be used against you is if you take a loan and don't pay it back, then you can't get your papers for graduation. You can't get your papers for graduation. You cannot apply for another visa. Yes. University of Sydney. Now, Monash. We're down in Melbourne now. Monash has got a big package funded by the school and by its philanthropists. Now, I don't know how many schools have philanthropists, but Monash does. And there is immediate cash payments of $500 for students in precarious need. But there's also from tomorrow, what are we today? Sunday. From Tuesday the 14th of this month, there'll be $7,000 grants available for Chinese and Iranian students, which is fantastic. And there'll also be the capacity for Monash students is they can claim no more than 7,500. Now, 7,500 is a very decent grant. That's a great payment. Now, emergency payments for 500, undergrad, postgrad, domestic, international, all eligible. You've got to show good grades again. Now, even if you don't have good grades, still apply. But, be warned that one of the conditions is you must have good grades. What good grades are? Well, your idea, Grant, and my idea of good grades are getting through. Let's just see what happens with the school. So if you are listening and grades are mediocre, still apply.
David, the 7,500 ceiling, that grant is
for Chinese
only
and Iranian.
Yeah. Now, that's for Chinese and Iranian citizens, and
incurred reasonable costs when they were banned from travel within China and Iran, getting back to Australia.
Okay, so that's a specific, very specific purpose grant. That means
absolutely, and the details for that come out in 2 days' time. Monash hasn't released them yet. They'll be releasing them on Tuesday. They're all associated with inbound travel in China and Iran for the lockdowns. University of South Australia has got a hardship fund. Loss of hours, that's a big one. You lose hours, you're eligible. Reduced hours of employment, you're eligible. Lose your job, you're eligible. Inability to pay rent, you're eligible. No bill payment because you can't have a job. You've lost a job, you've got an inability to pay for bills, that'll help. They'll help. Medically advised self-isolation. If you've been ill, if you've been isolated and you are isolated, they'll provide funding to help you there. You've got to be currently enrolled. Now, they're generous, not just bachelor, undergrad, postgrad research, but also sub-bachelor. Okay, you've got to be enrolled for 2020, though. You've got to demonstrate the intention to continue studies. You've got to do the tongue twister. I need a coffee. What you've got to do is demonstrate that intention again. Okay, it's really important. Experiencing financial difficulty is something that you can demonstrate with your bills, your bank statements. People must remember you've got to print off all your bank statements. You've got to collect all your bills. If you throw away your bills, seek evidence from utilities, ask for them to resend them. Grant, that could be accessed on a website, surely. Your gas bill, your electricity bill. Yeah. What you've got to do is a paper trail. Be assignment-like. If you've got an assignment, you're meticulous in showing your financial difficulty. Be meticulous. Provide evidence from third-party sources, gas, electricity, water, your landlord, the real estate agent. Everything to show that you have outgoings and everything to show what you have in your bank account. So if you've got one bank account, two bank accounts, present them. Don't hide. Because if you hide, it'll come back and bite you. All right? University of South Australia, University of WA is pretty much the same. University of Tasmania, I mean, much of a muchness. What we haven't talked about today, the private providers. If you're a private provider, make your own inquiries. I don't think there'll be the generosity of the universities, but it remains to be seen.
And we're going to reach out to a couple of providers and see whether we can get some comment from them and give us an idea of what's likely to happen.
With them, what we'll be asking is, what packages are available for international students, but we'll also see how they're coping, because private providers, well, I mean, they're players like the universities, and they have many students, and we'll ask one or two, see if we can get them to come in and explain what they're doing for their students, not just in terms of financial aid, but how they're coping with online courses.
Because many of them just won't have been set up for it, and that's very costly to implement in a hurry.
Very costly, and also that's exactly right, to implement them in a hurry. The unis have the resources to do it quickly, and they've been rather quick. The private providers, we don't know. And that's our whip around Australia, and I mean, I think it's time to eat some Easter eggs, Grant, or you to have your lasagna.
No, you mentioned the reviews, David.
Oh, the reviews. Let's read a few out. We haven't ever read them before.
I do want to comment on the one that we got recently that you drew my attention to. Now,
He didn't identify himself. He had a moniker. He didn't have his real name.
Well, yeah, nearly everyone's got a moniker. It's Benny. Now, he's given us 3 out of 5 stars.
Thank you, Benny.
Well, thanks.
No, we always got to thank our reviewers for making the effort to. But I mean, what he raises. Let's look at what he raises.
I'm going to read it out, and I don't know what his voice is like, so I'll just use mine. How's that?
Good idea.
Interesting podcast. Hard to listen. Both of the speakers interrupt each other quite often, jumping from topics, sometimes leaving something unexplained or unclear. I wish they also numbered their podcast and implemented a system, as it would be easier for listeners. It also seems that they talk a lot about partner visas and not much about other types, such parent, business, or other working visas. Now, I don't think he's had a look at all the ones that we've recently done.
We've recorded over 30 episodes. And we can assure you we haven't done 30 episodes on partner visas.
I think we've done 3. I think we've done 3, but they're also the most popular. The ones on studying and partner visas, spouses are the most popular. That's what people are listening to the most. But we have covered parent visa. We have covered how to bring the supporting parent visa. We have done business visas. We're working our way through the states.
Last I looked, Grant, we also numbered our programs as well.
We do different podcast programs, like where you listen to them, handle numbering differently. So I publish them, and they are given an episode number. But again, to understand what we're trying to do, you don't have to listen to one and then the next one and then the next one. We try and cover a topic self-contained in each episode. So you can look at the topic, you can look at what the episode is named to see whether it's interesting for you. Because if you have no interest in bringing a spouse to Australia, I don't expect that you're going to go and listen to 3 episodes on spouses. But if you are,
the reason they're important, as you said, though, Grant, they are important because they're a legitimate and real way to show how you can get a visa to Australia. And a lot of people partner up in beautiful, truthful, honest relationships with Australians. So they need to know the tricks and what the traps are for migration for partner visas. It's really important.
So after copping a bit of a 3-star flogging there from what was his name?
Benny.
It's Benny. Thanks, it's Benny. And I hope you don't get annoyed that we did one about international students today, because, we just thought that it was important at the moment because international students are getting a bit of a rough deal. Now, David, would you like to hear a 5-star review?
No, that would give me great pleasure, Grant. Fire away.
And this is from Ahmad BA or BA Ahmad. I'm not sure what. And his heading on his review, David is great. I don't know what I am.
Thank you, mate.
I can only infer from that I am less than great. So thanks very much. But his review reads, I talked to David for 20 minutes about migrating to Australia. He was friendly and very knowledgeable about Australian immigration laws. And this podcast is terrific. I'll take that one. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Ahmed. Very kind of you. Very kind.
Now, we have another 5-star here from Brasileiro Boy. I'm guessing that Brasileiro Boy is either in Brazil or from Brazil.
Beautiful.
His headline for his review, great podcast. And he's gone on to be very, very descriptive. It's a 5-star review. Friendly and knowledgeable hosts.
Well, there you go. And Brasileiro Boy acknowledged the existence of the wonderful producer. Yeah, we wouldn't have anything without you, Grant.
Couldn't have said that better myself. So let's see. We've got 2 more that I'll read out that I prepared earlier. This one is from Edward, And Edward's surname appears to be 2259. Hello, Edward 2259. His headline, David, and I hope you're listening, it's Benny. His headline is brilliant. 5 stars.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Edward 2559.
And he goes on to say, these podcasts are essential for anyone interested in immigration issues in Australia or wishing to immigrate to Australia. The lead commentator, David Bongiorno, is a top lawyer in this area. Having also been an international journalist, he understands the issues facing migrants and those displaced in the world. I have a lot as a I travel a lot as a documentary maker, and previously as a photojournalist and journalist. I can guarantee David is giving real world advice vital to the Australian immigration environment. Oh, and here we go. Edward's put his name at the bottom here, and it's Ted McDonald. Thank you, Ted.
Oh, a prize-winning photographer and a filmmaker.
And while we're patting ourselves on the back, David, I'll go for one more. This is from Heart in Tokyo, and this is my favourite, and that's because I don't know if you remember back to when I approached you about. I thought you should do a podcast, and this review sums up pretty much what my idea for doing a podcast on such a sort of dry subject would be. The headline is so helpful, 5 stars. Forget trawling the internet for outdated information, particularly if you find written English difficult. This podcast rocks. Easy listening. Yeah, easy listening, not too much legal mumbo jumbo. And I think that's almost exactly what I said to you 150 years ago when I said, David, I think you should do a podcast. And that was no legal mumbo jumbo. We'll use the specific terms when needed.
I'm not a fan of legal mumbo jumbo.
No, you got to say it to be clear. If you have to use the terms.
I had a 69 average through law school because I didn't use legal mumbo jumbo. But what it doesn't help people. It confuses people.
That's right.
Latin
and anyway,
we
know what the law is really about, don't we, David? It's the vibe.
That's it. Who was that? Was that
that was in The Castle?
Tyrrell Moira. Who played? Yeah. What's his name? I've forgotten the lawyer's name now. Dennis Denuto.
Dennis
Denuto. Yeah.
So if you're wondering what we're talking about, there's a great movie, a bit of a cult movie now in Australia called The Castle, and it was about a family whose land was going to be compulsorily acquired to extend the airport, which is just over here from my place, not far away. And their house was going to be compulsory acquired to make way for an expansion of the airport, and they fought it all the way to the highest court in the land, the High Court. And the argument was that it was against the vibe.
I'll have to watch that again on this Easter break because that's a terrific Australian film. Yeah. That's a terrific one.
I really liked it when one of the justices of the High Court asked him where you can demonstrate where where specifically you can find in the Constitution that the compulsory acquisition would be not permissible. And he said, well, it's the vibe of the thing. Taking someone's property, and you can't do that. It's a good movie. Very good movie.
Terrific film.
Okay,
so
now,
let's go on, Grant.
Well, I was going to say we would love to hear some more reviews. Whether you want to give us 3 stars and be
good, bad, and ugly, just tell us what you really feel. Give us the vibe.
and I meant to have another not a crack at Hanny Benny or Benny. It's Benny, but if there's things that you want us to cover, you have to tell us what they are. You can't just say cover other topics. We've covered plenty of topics, and we're always moving on to some new ones. We'll have a look at what people are interested in and what people are asking. But we know from the listeners, we know what people listen to. I can see what people are listening to every day, every week, every month, and we know that spouses working and studying are the real hot topics.
They're hot because they're real, they're important, and a lot of people are in a position to avail themselves of these visas.
And of course, we do what we're doing today is when something changes and there's an update, we try and bring it to you. Now, as we have, we've done what we know about for international students today, we're going to do in the next couple of weeks, we're going to update on any particular issues and changes to other temporary residents that need to be explained. It's quite difficult if you're searching through the media to find that information. And I'm not terribly sure, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the government doesn't really, or shouldn't say they don't know, but they haven't really.
Changes are rolling. Changes are rolling. They're being fine-tuned. Changes are rolling. Things are being fine-tuned, yeah.
But what we do know...
And things will shift and change. It's a dynamic environment by virtue of the nature of the virus itself. And so people will be needing information as it comes to hand and will disseminate and distribute.
And what we do know is that at this stage, all of the financial assistance from the government, it is not available to temporary residents unless they're from New Zealand.
International students, I mean, we will actually do an upcoming episode on temporary visa holders, because we haven't done that yet, temporary visa holders and what entitlements they do and do not have. So mark that one down, people listening, that we will do one on very shortly on temporary visa holders. And temporary visa holders are international students. They are people on 457, 482 working visas. They are people on 444 special category New Zealand visas. And we can go through, we'll dedicate a discrete episode to those people on temporary visas.
Yeah. So we're not going to talk about tourists, but again, something we should mention, David, that if you are here on a tourist visa, and
make sure you don't become unlawful.
That's right.
Become unlawful. Apply for a new visa.
Now,
apply for a new visa.
A new tourist visa, and they
Absolutely.
can apply. They can apply on shore via.
You can. And if you have a waiver, you need to apply for that. Let me start that one again. If you have a no further stay condition, you must apply for a waiver. You must apply. If you have a no further stay condition, you must apply for a waiver before you apply for your visa. Your no further stay condition must be removed before you can apply for a new visa. That will affect potentially people from the subcontinent and from the mainland, as they often have waivers, as they often have no further stay conditions. No further stay conditions must always be replaced by waiver. You make application for waiver, you get the no further stay condition removed, you can apply for a visa. If you do not get your no further stay condition removed and you have not applied for a waiver, you've got to leave. A waiver is not a visa. An application for waiver is not a visa grant. It is not a visa grant. You must apply well and truly before your tourist visa expires, and then when you get that news, you've got the waiver, your no further stay condition has been removed, you can then apply. Does that make sense?
It does. Now, just to step it through, David, is they can do that directly through their IMI account.
And I don't know how long a waiver request for removal of a no further stay condition is taking. I don't know at this stage how long it's taking, but they get in trouble. You will not be able to apply for a visa onshore if you have not applied and received the removal of your no further stay condition. So the steps: 1, apply for the no further stay condition to be removed. 2, take receipt of proof that the no further stay condition has been removed. And 3, apply for the visa.
and I'm going to put number 4 in. If you used an agent to get your travel visa
Get them
to Australia,
to make applications
get,
to remove
yeah,
the no further stay condition.
And even though we're in the middle of Easter now, send them an email right now.
Absolutely.
Do it now.
And phone call on Monday or Tuesday, because
Tuesday when everyone reopens.
Or if they've applied offshore, the person may be offshore and not observing Easter. Try on Monday. But the story is, if someone's done it for you, it's got the no further stay condition, get them to remove it, get the waiver, and then apply for a new visa.
And if they want to follow something up with you, David, they should hit you on Twitter.
Hit me on Twitter, David Bongiorno. So at DavidBongiorno, David Bongiorno. DM me. That's the fastest way to get in touch.
And if you don't use Twitter, you have any difficulty,
call the office.
And we won't give that number out over the wide world. But if you do need some assistance and you're having any difficulty, get to the migratingtoaustraliapodcast.com website, leave a comment or send an email to me, Grant, at migratingtoaustraliapodcast.com, and I'll ensure that it gets to David ASAP.
Not everybody, Grant, will have a no further stay condition. Not everybody. People from Europe generally do not. People from the United Kingdom, the English-speaking territories of the world, do not. So they will not need to seek removal of a no further stay condition because they have no further stay condition. Typically, people who apply from the United Kingdom, Western Europe, Eastern Europe will have no work, which is fine. Maximum 3-month study, a couple of other conditions, but no further stay. The 8503 condition is the condition.
But if you don't have a no further stay and your visa,
the double negatives are getting confusing.
That's right. If the no further stay does not apply to you, but your visa is coming to an end, you still need to apply for an extension or a new visa.
No, not an extension. A new visa. Hold a visa, apply for a new visa. Have conditions, apply to have conditions removed, get waiver, apply for new visa. Always apply for new visas. Do not let your current visa expire. Do what's necessary to make an application for a new visa.
Because
or go home.
Yeah, or go home. And as we know, David, I sent you an example of a woman who was trying to get from Melbourne to Perth, and she was being asked to pay $4,000.
I saw that ticket pricing.
That is what is happening. So to actually leave the country at the moment is very, very difficult. The airlines, well, most airlines are let me put it this way. Most airlines are not flying into Australia. Those that are and flying out are operating at 15% or less. The air traffic coming out of Tullamarine here is at 15% of its normal operations. And that, when you take the US and London routes out, that means there's almost nothing. The China flying out, I saw a Vietnam plane fly overhead the other day, Vietnam Airlines, but I used to get, we would have planes flying overhead every 5 minutes from here, and I haven't heard one at all today. So it's difficult to leave. So if you can't leave, you must make sure that you can stay legally. Otherwise, you'll get very acquainted with somewhere like Port Hedland.
Grant, have a good Easter, mate.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back. We'll be back soon. David and I are working on getting some people to talk to us more about the situation for international students, and we're digging into temporary visas more. And we're going to plug on with our employment series, because one day it's all going to be good again.
And when it's good, we'll have lots to say about it, so everybody's clear.
So, Hey, wow, somebody's just given us a comment, David, and Dee's life, and I'm going to guess I know who that is, because I know
Oh, that's all right.
we've got a fan of the show who was waiting for us to go live the other day, because we've rescheduled this twice, and so there we are. And the comment is, "Wow, interesting." So take that, it's Hanny Benny or Benny Benny. So thanks, thanks, Dee. All right, David, we're going to get out of here. I'm going to have some Easter lasagna. You're going to have some Easter eggs with your young fella.
Enjoy,
did you
mate.
watch Willy Wonka last night, David?
No. Watched Willy Wonka many times. Actually watched Jumanji, the new one with The Rock, and it's actually pretty good. It's actually very good. I enjoyed it.
We had a good situation here in Melbourne last night on television. We had the
Johnny
old
Depp.
Willy Wonka on one channel. We had the new Willy Wonka on another channel. And on a different channel, there was a documentary on how they make chocolate Easter eggs.
That's not bad.
It was a beauty.
I hope you watch the Gene Wilder version, not the Johnny Depp version.
There's nothing better than I want an Oompa Loompa. I want an Oompa Loompa. That's one of the great movie scenes of all time.
Was that Veruca Salt?
That was Veruca, wasn't it?
Veruca Salt.
Yes.
Yeah. Veruca, sweet, I'll save some. Yeah.
Yes, and of course Veruca Salt, one of the great rock bands of the 90s. Showing
We'll finish
showing
with
my
that
age.
random fact, that important but very random fact. Talk to you next time, pal.
Hooroo. Thanks, everybody.
Ciao.